I mean, do what you want to do and know where you're going to.
That's right. We're back. We're live. It's Mark Lindsay, Elo Escajero here on the Trampled Under podcast show.
Hmm.
And what's going on?
Just trying to get used to life now, and kind of failing. But you know what? That's all right. Just
And failure is part of life.
I know that's what I mean. One foot in front of the other, and that's all you can do.
So
You know.
you're on course. If you
Yeah.
add failure to the mix, you're completely on course as normal for
Most
everybody, every
days,
other human.
some days I'm on top of it. I mean, I'm hitting every shot I take, and some days it's just like the stars are lined up and everything's going perfect. I'll hit every traffic light green on the way through. Look down at the gas gauge and it's almost touching full. I mean, everything is going just smooth. And other days I'm just glad to be out of bed without a helmet on. And I'm not convinced that I don't need a helmet. It just depends, but that's okay. But I did have something I wanted to mention, and I, I I wanted to do it before Greg got here because this is going to make him roll his eyes, and that's fine. We didn't really miss it. It just happened to land between our episodes. But Friday the 9th was the 60th anniversary of something.
I know exactly what it is.
February 9th, 1964.
If I guess it, can I? If I get,
If
I'm not
you
gonna
guess
ruin it.
it, score yourself 5 bonus points. Go for it.
Okay, I'm not gonna say it.
No, go ahead and say it. See if you know.
No, I don't want to ruin. I want you to say it, but I'm gonna hint at it.
Mhm,
But I'm gonna preempt it before you go. I
mhm.
just want to say this one thing in context of what you're about to
Okay.
say. You and I,
Hmm.
although are from different backgrounds, from the two. How do we say it? Two guys from different backgrounds, from two different sides of the country. We have a slogan.
Yeah.
We do have. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Okay. We've done this so long that by the time we go around the block, we already forgot where we start.
Mhm.
Okay. So you do know, son of a, you do know, you do, you do know that you and I are connected
Mhm.
to the internet.
Right.
So I don't want to go in conspiracy theory realm here, but you do know that there's a chance that whatever you ran across
Uh huh.
might have come across my screen because somebody that holds the levers of power somewhere
Hmm.
in some office room somewhere in New York um, may have dropped. We may what I'm trying to say. We may be being without us. We may this may be the Matrix or
Hmm.
Truman Show. So I will just hint at it and allow you to continue. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Go for it. Just go ahead and say it. See if you got it.
I'm just thinking about four lads. Continue.
That's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. And if there is somebody up there pulling the levers and making sure you and I see the same thing, like on ads or something, then they're really good because it just popped into my brain. Wait a minute. Because another subject was on my mind, and I just, let me check on that. And yeah, February 7th, excuse me, February 9th, 1964 was the first time the Beatles played on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Did I have a President Biden moment just before trying to remember our slogan? Like, just continue.
Yeah, well, that's
Because
okay because I can't be asked to go look it up, and I don't remember it either. Two guys from
that's why you
different
freaking told me.
backgrounds and opposite sides of the country talking about life, the universe, and everything, something like that.
That part I
Hmm.
remember.
Hmm.
We've been, yeah, that part I remember. That life, the universe, and everything. That's the part that always that always. But yeah, so 60 years ago, what?
Last Friday, the 9th. Six,
And
60 years. I mean, that I was 3 years old. So, well, I was not quite 3 years old. Didn't turn three until March. So I don't remember. But what got me on this and what got me thinking about it was Beatlemania. And I was trying to think, how would you describe Beatlemania to
But you
somebody who
never
didn't
said.
live through it?
But you never told the audience that we're talking about the Ed Sullivan
Yes, the
event.
Ed Sullivan appearance of the Beatles on February 9th. It was their first appearance on the Ed Sullivan show. And they had 50,000 requests for tickets, and the theater would only hold 700 people. And I mean, there's all kinds of wild stuff about that show. Celebrities were trying to get their kids in, and most of them were turned away. There were a few that did get tickets. Let's see, Walter Cronkite and Jack Parr uh, did get seats for their kids. Um, Richard Nixon's daughter Julie got in. Leonard Bernstein tried but failed. Just it was weird, and uh, Ed Sullivan himself couldn't get any extra tickets. It was just that mad of a thing, you know. But it was strange. They said that they hadn't seen that kind of hysteria around an episode of the TV show since Elvis made his first appearance in '56, and it was just an odd time to be alive. I was so little, I didn't know what was going on. I remember hearing a lot about the Beatles, but I didn't know any, I was a little kid. I didn't know anything.
That was about 12 to 15 years prior to my making my appearance.
Yeah.
My father was out of the U.S. Army by the time
Uh-huh.
of that appearance, and likely making various living in Miami, likely making different plans with other
Hmm.
exiles for future stuff, um, plots and such.
Yeah.
That was the era of all that, because Kennedy had been shot in the
Yeah.
interim. A whole bunch of stuff was
Right.
happening during that whole time.
Yeah. They consider the era of Beatlemania was this is how the Museum of Youth Culture classifies Beatlemania. It was the name given to describe the ecstatic female fan led culture surrounding the Beatles between 1963 and 1966. And it was first used in the British media in late 63 and then became um, well known in America. And it was just, I mean, I've watched footage of it and things like that, and I can vaguely remember all the buzz about them and all the talking about them. I mean, I can remember my grandmother talking to my mom and dad about, oh, you like those Beatles? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can remember that, but I really didn't understand what was going on. All I knew was when their music came on, mom, in a rare move by her, actually turned the radio up a little bit because she liked them. Dad was all for it. He didn't care, you
My
know.
dad wasn't interested in none of that. Um, his reference point, like I've told you before, was Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
He liked that,
Mm-hmm.
although it wasn't like he played that on the radio. But like his reference point was his growing up.
Yeah.
My mom was different. She liked all the different from the all the way from Paul Anka to all the way to Stevie Wonder, like all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt, her sister, was the vanguard of up and coming music as it was coming out for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so she would expose me to stuff other than hair metal,
Yeah.
and so that was kind of a the way that other things got it. Because if it were up to me, I would have been like many of my friends, hair metal all the way, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. Did you ever see the movie American Graffiti?
Hmm.
Those kids living in that era, I was the child of. I mean, you can pick a boy and a girl from that movie. I was the kid, the result of that generation. And so the music was always around me. The
but
radio was always on, and it
but
was, you know,
but I was the result.
mhm,
Even though we have a gap in age between you and
mhm.
I was a result, obviously with the variations to
Sure.
include the Cuban exile community, but I was a result of that same generation. Like my
Yeah.
parents were of that age.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the music was all around. Like I said, when my mom and dad got married, my mom was 18, my dad was 17. So they were still kids themselves, to be honest. And so the music just kind of followed. And it was things like Buddy Holly, it was the Platters, Danny and the Juniors. It was all of that stuff. And then it got into the, as you were saying, Paul Anka and Bobby Vinton and Nat King Cole. And I can't remember that other, there was another singer that mom loved. She was more of the mellow type, and dad was more of a rock and roller. You know,
I'm
the
I'm
Beach Boys were playing and things like that.
I'm
So,
starting to get the notion that Greg, um, in another lifetime, would have been set in some port town as a sailor, sitting at the bar, and as people came in, he would fisticuffs battle. You can almost think of like a Popeye, like seaside town, and Greg would be there kicking butt because he just wants to throw fists in the air for no freaking reason. See, this is if everybody was like if everybody in Canada were like Greg, you know, we would be at war right now.
I can imagine Greg sitting at a bar going, rock and roll's been going downhill ever since Buddy Holly died. You know?
I mean, for goodness sakes, you can't extract, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that, but I will say this. You cannot extract our history
Hmm.
in music from the Beatles because their influence was
Oh, yeah.
resoundingly
Oh, yeah.
everywhere.
Well, I asked my dad about it later on. I don't know. I was probably 12, 13, something like that. And I asked him, you know, because mom was talking about Beatlemania, and it was kind of a word that you heard in the periphery. I didn't really know anything. So I'm like, what was the big deal? And he said at the time, they were just anti everything. Nobody had ever heard anything close, anything similar to that. A lot of it was down to the 12-string guitar, but the way they looked, the way they acted, you know, when they asked him, well, how do you guys find the US? And Ringo says, well, basically, we turned left at Greenland. That's not the kind of interview answer they were expecting. And folks at first didn't really know how to take him. But he said that it was a complete and total shift. Having hair that long, by today's standards, it was nothing. But having hair that long just was not the norm. That just wasn't done by guys. And they all dressed very smartly. And the music was like nothing they had ever heard before. It was just different. And I said, okay, but even that doesn't explain it. He says, well, most of that was driven by young teenage girls. So, you know, what can you say? They said their
Yeah,
first single, that first single, well,
I want
please,
to hold your
please,
hand.
please, please me, and P.S. I love you, sold 250,000 records in the first 3 days it was released in the U.S.
Yeah,
And, you know, over a million by the end of that month. And it just went bananas from there. I mean, there was a time, there were several times actually, where all five of the top five were the Beatles, you know, and it was just, but to think it all basically kicked off, it all got started 60 years ago, Friday.
it was to me the Beatles in retrospect, and really being a connoisseur of the literature behind the story
Hmm.
of the music in my era, which at this time, even it'll never be as old as when it came out. My era, it's
Yeah.
always going to be fixed in the 80s,
Yeah.
but now the 80s is um but thinking one of the biggest things for me, it was the equivalent of turning on the switch that moment that TV went from black and white to color.
Hmm.
In my opinion, because they progressed in their music in ways that were unexpected. So everything was a first with the Beatles,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Everything. The way they looked, the things they wrote about, the things they actually played, the way the songs changed, the videos that they would make back then, the the fact that they some people have suggested, and I think it's perfectly reasonable, and they were the first. I mean, there may have been others in other genres, but they perfectly sounded British on their records anyhow. They didn't change their. Yes, there was an Americanness to it, of course,
Yeah.
um, but their voices were. They always sung British like. Yes, they did this. That. Well, this. In other words, they were quintessentially English, although
Yeah.
their ancestry
Well,
hailed from different parts of the British Isles and such. But they did have a thing of uniqueness about them.
they wrote from a Brit's perspective, and they wrote their own music.
Yeah,
So that was novel too. They weren't just doing covers. I mean, they did do Twist and Shout, and they did do a few other covers, but most of it was their own music, which was almost unheard of, you know.
that's right.
So it, that was something different about them as well.
Yeah, back then, a lot of people that were in the music industry
Hmm.
played songwriters.
Hmm.
They would pick from catalogs and they would cover the
Yes.
songs, But the Beatles infused in their albums
Hmm.
their own songs, and what that was considered back then, according to what I've read from in hindsight, that was considered a separate discipline by a lot. Maybe
Hmm.
not by a lot, but it was considered a uniqueness. If a person could write music
Hmm.
as opposed to just perform it, those were two different groups. And
Right.
these people are not only musicians, but they're writing. That means that there's something more to them that's profound, and that added to the sort of the legend of it.
Hmm. Well, they were 100% original and just wanted to do things their way. Of course, they had to listen to their producer and they had to listen to the record labels and what have you, but they could hold their ground and could stand their ground, especially when they became as popular as they did. And it was almost as though they could throw anything out there and it would be a hit, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted to do things their way. And thankfully, they had the right people around them that would let them do so.
That's why they wrote that song. I did it my
I didn't write that song,
way.
but yes. So
But
I
they
didn't
did it
really
their
have
way.
a point to all of this. I just thought it was something interesting, and I didn't know that if you would flash on it or not. But
I'm telling you, somebody's pulling. There's
well,
something
then
back.
they're really, really good because, like I said, this didn't come from any outside forces. I don't know why Beatlemania popped into my brain, but it did. Excuse me. And I started kind of looking into it. And then I saw that 60-year. Oh, wait a minute here. And I started looking it up. Sure enough, Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, February 9th, 1964.
I can introduce what I wanted to say and to
Okay.
keep it concise, because it does have music involved in it.
Okay.
Actually, wrote a post about it. Um, but you can't be unless you write a long thing. You can't really
Hmm.
be extra nuanced. But I think I got in all the key features that I wanted to present in that post on Facebook, just for
Okay.
friends and family to see it. So I'm not one for the Super Bowl.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't watch it.
I'm not one for sports in general, but the Super Bowl in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just see it like the Coliseum. People coming in, cheering for their team, and that's perfectly fine
Hmm.
because everybody does something for entertainment.
Sure. Sure.
Could be one thing or the other. But to confuse entertainment and political whatnots and the weirdness that happened, I came to late in the story.
Mhm.
But there was this whole to do about the national anthem was sung as is always sung in sports events,
Yeah.
you know, especially of that caliber,
Hmm.
which is our national anthem that
Hmm.
includes all people that are American.
Hmm.
I mean, there is a notion of goodwill enshrined in our national anthem, which, even though you could stick to the letter of the law of it, although you could say also that it encompasses a spirit of goodness. Okay, there is that. But anyways, but there was a second song sung,
Hmm.
which some people have coined as the Black National Anthem.
What was that?
So back in in the turn of the century,
Hmm.
a man penned a song that was a song in the United States
Hmm.
that here and he was from Florida, but he became a politician. He was of African descent.
Okay. And
And go ahead, go ahead.
well, what was the name of the song?
It's called something let light. Um, I'll tell you what it's called. It's called it's called Let Every Voice Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Oh, okay.
So he wrote it back in the 1900s, and the lyrics um essentially are talking about love of country, love of this freedom that we have. It's a song
Hmm.
of freedom in the context of that let many voices speak to free, like something to that effect.
Hmm.
um Actually, I'll read the lyrics, um just so that you have the context. This is the
Yeah,
lyrics.
I'm looking at them now, but go ahead.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listing skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. And then it continues. In itself, as as read, I find no freaking objection to that.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah. Not a
However,
thing wrong with it. It's actually pretty good.
yeah, and by the way, Ray
Hmm.
Charles sang it,
Nice.
and countless others sang it, and I can't find, forgive, me,
So,
any qualif any need of qualification to
um,
consider Ray Charles anything as human and flawed as he was as every human, because he has a story of his own.
sure.
Anyone more American, in my opinion.
Same here.
I'm
I
so I'm
so,
sorry for any that might think different out there,
s-
but the concept. Well, well, go ahead. You were gonna say
well,
something.
help me out here. Are you saying that there was people had a problem with somebody singing that song?
Well, here's the thing.
Hmm.
So basically, a whole lot of people grabbed on to the fact that they sung that,
Hmm.
blanketing it in the context of the Super Bowl
Okay.
with the woke culture,
Oh, bull.
with the well, this is a thing, um, and there's bad players all around to pick out, but sports goers,
Hmm.
broadly speaking,
Hmm.
we don't know what the individuals may have in their brains, but broadly speaking, we have seen them, like other situations, go
Hmm.
to mobs when one team wins, the other one loses.
Hmm.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying is you can't reason with crowds.
No, no. And that's why they came up with that phrase, mob mentality. Yeah.
Right. And I'm not trying to, but I'm saying that at the level of a crowd, a concert goer or a sports goer, um, it's
Well,
about sports and stuff. But in America, any opportunity, anywhere there's a leak, a bucket will be produced. Um,
true.
Politics is intermixed with so many things, and there's this whole woke thing, and there's all these things, and then so my point is this: people were upset because it was billed as not billed officially that I'm
Hmm.
aware of, but the suggestion was put out by certain media people
Hmm.
that this was an affront to the national anthem, as opposed to, in
Well,
addition to the national anthem played,
hmm.
there's this song of freedom. Yeah, these people that are Americans. Look, I believe in giving everyone. Look, if it's warranted, it's warranted. Who the hell am I to? America has many people and many variations of struggle, but to qualify it in the context of wokeness, which I understand
That's,
why they did that, because yes, people will use that in that context. I totally understand that, but if we were nuanced sufficiently to understand the song in context, is a song of hope, and it's what it's saying. Songs are meant to be interpreted by the heart, right, of each individual, but what it's saying isn't outwardly. There's no replacement of this and that. So politics rears its dirty, its filthy head again, and it's coming from a certain mentality.
you know,
So yeah, so basically I saw that when I went and read the history of the, because I had no idea that that song even existed, but I had
same here.
commented. Yeah, I had no idea. But a friend had commented something without mentioning the specifics. And since I don't watch the Super Bowl,
Hmm.
I read what he said and gave my opinion according to what he said. And it matches even after the fact, because all I did was reply to what he said. Not negatively, but giving a sort of um, my thought on what he said. But now looking back, thank goodness I read what people write.
Hmm.
Thank goodness I take into account what the words are between each frickin' letter
Hmm.
and sentence and period. Thank good, and may not be successful all the time, but thank goodness I actually read what's going on. I may misinterpret it if it's written poorly or if I'm not up to par, but I'm reading to draw the context that the person is suggesting, not what I'm inventing in my head that he's saying. And then I answer what he's saying. So I wrote it. Thank goodness I did that,
Hmm.
because my reply doesn't screw up the me later finding out
Yeah.
that an additional context which he didn't add was the song replace the assumption that this song is replacing the national anthem. And so
How would anybody come to that conclusion? I still don't get the objections. I mean, maybe I'm naive. I don't think I am, but maybe I'm naive. I don't find a single thing wrong with it.
because for the American public, not individuals, but the narratives floating around simplifies what's complicated in order to place blame on one group or the other according to a political affiliation
Right.
or a background affiliation.
But even then, how do you get that from the lyrics to this tune? And you're right. I'm learning about this just now from you.
Yeah, I
I
learned it
know
yesterday.
I know nothing about who wrote it. I'm I'm looking here and I'm seeing, okay, James Weldon Johnson, born in Florida in 1871. Okay, fine. He wrote several poetry collections and novels. And okay, great. But my whole point is there is nothing objectionable about it. I think this is another example of if you look for something to be offended or pissed off about, you'll find it if you dig hard enough. Because there's nothing wrong with anything that I'm reading about from the lyrics of the song. And again, I don't know its history. I don't know anything about it other than what you're telling me now.
It falls into the cause of African Americans across
Hmm.
history
Hmm.
having the same rights as every other decent two-legged or one-legged walking American.
Yeah, well, I
So in the
mean,
context of that, but in the context of that lyrically, it includes because it doesn't enumerate.
mhm,
Oh, it's liberty for us, but not for you. That's actually against. That's actually what the song is implying. Liberty for all human beings, for goodness
mhm,
sakes.
yeah,
But an American today, let's call him Joe Average,
mhm,
um, not specific to one guy, but just a narrative that is at play in the atmosphere,
mhm,
floating around in the ether, is nuance is unimportant. What's unimportant is what this guy called something Malice, which I we've talked about in the past
mhm,
season. He's if I say the next word, it will tumble everything into another hemisphere. But it's true.
mhm,
This gentleman Michael Malice is a devout, or not devout, but a declared anarchist.
mhm,
That alone is enough to ruin everything else in this, because the human mind, one
mhm,
human being with all the information available under one category
mhm,
cannot. I'm broadly speaking. I don't know what one person or another, but I'm saying like what we see is that all the variables that are necessary to look at to actually say what something is as best possible is unavailable to the average human being because they're unwilling. Let's put it this way: they prefer the least path of resistance of saying good, bad, bad, good, easy, difficult, avoid difficult, go easy.
and and if I have preached anything to anybody at any time at anywhere, it is simply to think for yourself. And we got to start doing a little bit more of that. It's real easy to fall into a camp, and you talk about that mob mentality. It's real easy to say, I'm on the side of red, I'm on the side of green. Well, that's fine as far as it goes, but that doesn't mean that either one of those is bad or is the enemy.
No,
And
it's
I
a lot of
think that,
things.
and I honestly think that if you are so narrow minded that you think that this particular song is a threat to anything that you hold dear, you need to carry your butt back to school. You need to pull your head out and start thinking for yourself and stop listening to the damn sound bites. Turn off the television and think for yourself. Quit getting your news from Facebook.
Yeah, it's. I'll use a compare. So the problem is that you and I are assuming that
Mhm.
maybe the people made that choice after they actually read the lyrics of the song. But the truth of the matter maybe notice the word I'm not saying it to you, I'm saying it
Yeah.
to future generations and or whoever the hell comes across this in some Mars colony while they're sitting playing
Mhm.
dominoes in 2195 and a half. Um, we are assuming that they read the lyrics and then came to but what really is happening is that someone is directing the orchestra, putting out the concept, and then the crowd is accepting as a
Exactly.
given.
It's two legs bad, four legs good. I use
But
that a lot, but that's the truth.
but at the same time, to complicate things, it is true that things like that, like a
Mhm.
song that has
It's
its
innocent. It's
it
innocent.
it has its innocence, but it is true that people will take it and use it for the purposes that we're discussing now that others are assuming. That is true, but that's true for every freaking
Everything that's
single.
ever been done. Yes.
I'll give you a very controversial example, but it's really not at all. But it is for us in the United States. But it's not the same thing at the same time. If one walks across Europe
Mhm.
and beyond, as far as India and
Mhm.
China, and they walk it and they go to the ancient sites
Mhm.
that each country jurisdiction um,
Each
suggests,
civilization, yeah.
you will find carved, etched
Mhm.
profoundly into rock, stone, marble,
Mhm.
wood, the swastika.
Yeah, well, it was a symbol that was taken from Hinduism and corrupted, turned around, corrupted. Yeah.
It's not Hindu, it's
Oh,
part Hindu.
yeah, I understand that. And it was also a huge, huge, huge ornamental design in Art
Indian
Deco.
and Indian
Yeah, and
is the
American Art Deco too, before 1938.
in Spain
Mhm.
anciently
Mhm.
it's etched
Mhm.
across the freaking world.
Mhm.
But some people went
And besmirched it. Yeah.
and besmirched the heck out of it, and
Mhm.
now it's associated with
And why wouldn't it be? Because that's
right,
the most common reference to it.
right. But it's a part of mankind's heritage
Mhm.
that has nothing to do originally,
Mhm.
but in context, right? Well, so this music thing for the average viewer, the average viewer that ended up with that suggestion as an acceptable thing, it's in it's basically branded the fact that these people are singing this song and we have the national anthem which was sang as well.
Yeah. I mean, lighten up,
But
you
you see,
know.
but now here's the caveat,
Mhm.
and it's so damn in our face obvious. Here's the caveat: the people, and by the way, I don't like one of the particular groups more by a lot,
Mhm.
politically speaking. Like the ideology of one, but I'm not gonna say which one. But
Yeah.
if you
You know.
yeah, well, but that doesn't change a fact here that I'll say. The ones that point wokeness, and I kind of agree because I can you see it, you know what
Yeah.
wokeness is, but they're just as woke in different ways. That
Mhm.
finger wag
Yeah.
can go like this, but they don't see it, and that they don't see it part.
And that's why I keep preaching think for yourself, because you're being manipulated and directed no matter which side you listen to.
Yes,
I've been
yes,
saying to you forever, they're two sides to the same coin, and the coin is made of lead, you know?
yeah, yeah. But that little finger, like being like the
Yeah.
hand being rotated back, that moment in the context of what I'm saying right now, there's a lot of there's a lot of places that I have freaking seen for a few years going, actually
Mhm.
for quite maybe decades,
Mhm.
maybe a decade. Let's call it let's call it, and I'm not trying to give myself a check on my report card, but I'm just trying to. This is not controversial, but like I'm exposing when I discovered the concept of libertarianism. I hate to because I know you.
Yeah, I don't want to get into politics. I really
No,
don't.
no, no. But this is a philosophy. I'm not talking about a political thing. The concept of live and let live, let be,
Mhm.
nonviolence, these concepts, unless pressed, unless
Mhm.
attacked, unless, like all these certain things, it dominoed into viewing the world and saying, well, let's look at things. And it's been slow in coming. But the long story short is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if you're going to make rules, the saying, rules for thee, not for me, that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
no. But people are unwilling. So, anyways, returning to the song, um, it sounds, when went and read the lyrics as I did that, I went,
Mhm.
there's nothing
There's not a thing wrong with it.
right.
And again, I would venture to say probably, I won't go as far as say 90, but let's say 80% of the people there and who watched it on TV had never heard of it either. It's not like it's, in the top 40.
Likely. So they probably thought it
Now,
was something as an affront. They literally, without even
how would
questioning.
you see it as an affront unless somebody told you to see it as a front? That's what I'm getting at. The on both sides, making it a controversy,
Mhm,
somebody trying to look for something to be cheesed off about,
mhm.
and they decided that this was it. Well, I'm sorry, brother, it just isn't.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
And I can agree with
Now,
somebody on a million other things, but
mhm.
if I see something that's screwed up, I will, I will
Well, you have
immediately say
to.
that.
You got to think for yourself. You have to. Now, Steve is throwing this in here. Part of the complaints were over the fact that people didn't stand for it the way they did for the national anthem. Well, why should they? They don't stand for America the Beautiful. They don't stand for any of the other old standards that we sang. Why would they stand for this? Again, people looking for something to make a controversy about. They didn't stand during the Super Bowl halftime show when those people sang those songs. I don't even know who performed. It doesn't matter who it was.
That does switch the context because I didn't go that in that direction.
Hmm.
What Steve pointed out. So if that does, see, I'm being fair here, or
Hmm.
I think I'm being fair here. What I said, as far as that went, that's how
Hmm.
that goes, as far
Hmm.
as I understand it. But adding what Steve said, which I did not take into consideration because I didn't see the game and whatnot,
Yeah.
changes a lot. And I'll say, from my 1980s American growing up view vantage point,
Hmm.
you stood up for the flag. You
Hmm.
did not let the flag, and I'm not a soldier as you were. Um, I was just and have always been regular Joe
Hmm.
citizen. You have you have put your neck on the line in ways that I have not. I'll recognize that today, tomorrow, and for the end of the time. Understand?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that as like, oh, no.
Yeah, I understand, but
I'm
yeah.
saying it as
Thank you.
a fact.
Hmm.
Period. Like that. I said that period not to you direct. I'm saying that like period out into the ether, just in case. I'm
Okay.
not trying, but it makes me serious. Okay, I grew up with an understanding that was not probably the understanding
Hmm.
of someone born in 1798
Hmm.
with the qualifiers of their environment at that time,
Sure.
and I wasn't someone with the born in the mid 1800s with the situation, or nor a 2000s kid. Sorry,
Hmm.
but in my respective America,
Hmm.
I have every right to claim it as mine, although I have to share it with others.
Yeah, we do
Okay,
have to share.
I have to share it. But here's the bit: you stood for the frickin' flag.
Hmm.
Period.
Yep.
Because opposite of that would be disrespectful and affront
Hmm.
a. So that's kind of like what it was. Okay,
I was taught as a kid, if you're wearing a hat, you take your hat off and you put it over your heart. And if you're not wearing a hat, you put your hand over your heart. You tried to sing along if you knew the words.
In the late 70s, early
Hmm.
80s, my me and my family and I
Hmm.
went to Disney World.
Yeah.
They're all Cuban. I was the first U.S. born
Hmm.
in my family.
Yeah.
I am the first.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that as a throwaway. I'm saying that as that there's something there.
Hmm.
We went to Disney World and we did our. It was fun. I was
Hmm.
little, so it's not like. But we did the Hall of Presidents
Hmm.
one, and we all sat on the row,
Hmm.
and it was like a show. And to me, I'm a little kid. This is like fresh to me. Listen to this, Mark. I'm telling you, just like it happened, my friend.
Okay.
I'm just laying it on the table. My grandmother was there and stuff, and then the curtains started to part, and the music went dun 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 dun,
Uh-huh.
and I got up.
Hmm.
I'm a little peon.
Hmm.
I got up. Everybody's seated,
Hmm.
and I put my hand on my heart,
Hmm.
and the whole place was seated, and I remember this because I think, what's this like? What? And my grandmother said, "Siéntate, sit down, sit down." I went like this
Yeah.
because
That's what you were taught. Yeah.
and the people and the people and the people adjacent observed this.
Hmm.
Now I don't know if any other kid or adult was doing that behind me,
Hmm.
but I could see that everybody was and they were just watching a show.
Yeah.
But so my grandmother and so I eventually sat down. But that's what we were taught in school.
Hmm. Same here.
Those were the friends you played with. That was the classes you attended. Um, Even at the religious schools, the
Hmm.
Catholic schools, because I went to Catholic school. That's where I was going at the time.
Hmm.
We pledged allegiance to the flag
Yep.
every freaking day in Catholic school.
So
Um,
did we in public school. Yeah.
well, then later in public school as well. But so my point is that this is what we grew up and understanding. It was reinforced
Hmm.
in the movies and the culture and this and that. In 2020, whatever, we're talking a few generations out, and there's bombardment of all sorts of notions. And one of the little check marks that people calm over
Hmm.
is these things that we're talking about now, whether this is so what Steve introduced just now to finish what I was going to say. If they didn't stand for it, I personally would think that these are my go-to thing would be what a bunch of scumbags, the ones that didn't stand
No,
up.
no, 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 no. Steve was talking about they didn't stand for this song the way they did for the national anthem.
Oh, oh,
Okay, let's make that complaint. Let's make that clear. Some part of the complaints were over the fact that people didn't stand for this other song the way they did for the national
they
anthem.
have no need to stand for that other song.
Yeah.
Or let's put it clear, it's true. Now there's consequences to that on a personal level,
Hmm.
on a social level, and if you're a team member, if
Hmm.
your bosses say, "Well, this is freaking you're insulting,"
Yeah.
you are, they have every right as because they're a business and stuff, and even on a national, well, mainly on the but anyways, with that said, there's no compulsion, ethically or not, to stand for the song that the gentleman in the 1900s created, as beautiful as it is and the sentiment that
Hmm.
it's proclaiming. This one stands up for if you're a 1980s kid in America, the reasonable thing is you stand for the national anthem. That's it.
Hmm.
If you want to stand for something else because you're kind of cool with it,
Yeah.
or for whatever you have, but as far as that is concerned, that's how that works.
I can remember in like third grade that song by I think it was Pete Seeger. This land is my land. This land is your land. I can remember there was two kids in my third grade class, and um they stood for that. Whenever
I
we
love it.
sang it as a class, they stood up for that
I love
and
it.
just sang to the top. I mean, as loud as they could, like a third grader would, you know.
I love. You know what I love about that?
What's that?
It's just you know what it is too. You're a kid.
Uh-huh.
It, when the song comes on, well, this is you stand up for songs, so who knows what's
Yeah.
going on? Because there's one that's the
Mhm,
national anthem, but for a kid, they might
mhm.
say, "Oh, here's P Diddy. Let's everybody jump up
It's
and dance."
well, yeah, this is but it was just that they didn't do it for America the Beautiful. They didn't do it for any of the other ones. They just but the national anthem and that song. We didn't sing the national anthem when I was in third grade, but that song, and I don't remember why we were doing it, but as a class, we were singing it, and these two kids got up out of their seats and were singing it just as loud as they could. I don't know, maybe they were related to Pete Seeger. I don't know, but it was something like that, you know. Um, Jamie Jamie Page said, "We never did any of that sort of stuff in school. It's strange how different people live." Yeah. Um, but then again, we don't have a monarchy. So we can't relate to that as well.
And we're still
So,
waiting. We're still waiting for JP to invade, like he did like 5 years
mhm,
ago, to invade Miami again. So,
yeah,
so we have to keep we have to keep our wits about us.
yeah. Now he says, I was in the USA and I stood for the national anthem out of respect because it was at a military event. And that's what it's all about, Jamie. It's a show of respect. If I were to go to the UK today, I would be seriously, right now, having not really studied on what the etiquette would be, I would be at a loss for what to do
I
out in
would I
front of
would stand.
out in front of Buckingham Palace or something like that.
Yeah, I would stand because you're not going to show disrespect.
Well, no,
Look,
yeah, absolutely,
we're human beings.
but if, for the sake of argument, I'm walking down the sidewalk in front of Buckingham Palace, and all of a sudden the gates open up, and here comes a fleet of cars, I don't know what to do. Do you just stand there and gawk,
You don't do the
or do you
Margarina,
know?
that's for
Yeah,
sure.
samba time. Okay, here we go. Everybody limbo rock. No,
You don't do the
I know
you
not
don't
to do that, but is there an etiquette? I would be at a loss. I don't
you,
know what to do.
you don't you don't do the what's the one with the stick?
Mhm. Oh,
Um,
limbo. Yeah,
yeah, you don't you don't grab two strangers from the crowd, give them a
in
stick,
limbo. Yeah.
and perform the limbo. That's for sure.
Well, so I would be looking around at other people. What are they doing? You know, are they all standing there? Are they turning their backs? What are they doing? You're not supposed to gaze upon royalty. I don't know what to do. You know, so, but when you're talking about different cultures like that, you kind of have to adopt mob think at the time, because if I go to Spain for the sake of argument, and before a sporting event, something a nation's national anthem plays, I would stand.
Yeah,
But if
yeah.
I look around and I see nobody else standing up, and I'm the only idiot, everybody's going, tourist, you
The
know.
only thing you don't do, in my understanding,
Hmm.
from an American perspective, is
Hmm.
that if you're visiting England or
Hmm.
Germany or wherever,
Hmm.
I would stand if people are standing.
Hmm.
But what you don't, what an American would not do,
Hmm.
is place their hand on their heart. That's it. That an American would not do.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
You know, there may be a few who do out of respect or because they think it's a sign of respect,
yeah,
but
that's what you
you
do
know.
not do. The hand in heart and standing. The
Hmm.
show of respect is standing, and
Hmm.
the hand in heart is saying something way different.
Yeah. Well,
Way different.
again, it depends on what a show of respect is, in that culture. If
Well,
I find out not putting your hand over your heart is an affront to the Sultan in Saudi Arabia, and then I'm let
no.
off, uh,
Without knowing, Mark.
mhm,
Okay, there's variations,
right.
but I will tell you right now, when heads of states visit other countries,
Hmm.
out of respect, they stand,
Hmm.
but they never pay the extra allegiance.
Understood.
So the hand in heart is something that, if I were to broad brush it, I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
if the idea is to do this with your
Yeah,
head and stomach,
exactly. You know.
I get what you're saying. But like the hand and heart in the
Mhm,
context of America,
mhm.
as far as I understand it from my, I don't know, what's that guy that the karate guy with the mustache, uh,
The karate guy with the mustache,
movie star,
Chuck Norris.
in my Chuck Norris 1980s movie viewing
Yeah.
and all the other stuff, Nintendo playing and all the stuff that you may think is Walmart throwaway. Not you, but like let's say
Mhm,
the hand and heart
mhm,
is reserved
mhm,
in combination for one specific thing.
mhm,
Those now I understood that,
mhm.
and I bet if I asked all my friends from my time here in Sweetwater in the heart of Miami, they would say the same thing. I mean, there
Right,
might
but
be
what I'm getting at is when you're in a different culture and you're at a loss for what to do, you kind of look around to see what everybody else is
no.
doing,
I granted you that.
just to not risk disrespect.
I granted
But
you
yeah,
that. Minus,
hmm
but I would tell you now,
hmm
wherever unless you're going to be eaten by roaming lions in some sort of cauldron,
yeah. But see,
because
you don't know my luck, man. You know, I would be the guy I would be the guy that finds out 3 days into the trip that sneezing in the direction of the royal palace is a personal affront that's would get you drawn and quartered, and I've got a heavy head cold. That's my luck, you know.
so
So
taking Steve's extra additional thing, if it turned out that they, I know this is not what happened,
mhm.
if it turns out that they didn't stand for the national anthem, I have a problem with that individually. They can do
Yeah,
whatever they want. It's none of
yeah,
my business. But
no.
if asked, I will say, no, that's kind of crappy. I would say. But if it's the other way around, like what you're suggesting, and it sounds like that's what it
Well,
was,
that's what Steve said. Yeah.
then it's to me it's perfectly freaking reasonable not to
Mhm.
stand.
Yeah.
You have no
Well, especially if you don't even know what the hell the song is, you've never heard it before. I'm just supposed to know by osmosis.
right.
Come on. Like I said, sounds to me like too many people looking for something to be cheesed off about it, and they had to dig that deep,
There's a
you
video.
know.
Let me add this to it
It's
because
just crazy.
Jamie Page is here. I just want to. Obviously, we're all connected to the internet. I ran into one of those short clips, and
Mhm.
it was a British guy. It's a British guy, right? In the UK somewhere, probably England proper. Um, and he's very proper and whatnot, and he's teaching etiquette, like like some sort of like tea time etiquette or whatnot
Mhm.
for the posh and this and that. You got to hear this. You got to, and let's see what Jamie Page says. I can't picture Jamie Page freaking doing what this guy was saying. Then again, I'm not trying to disqualify. I'm just saying that to me, this guy was like on with some sort of etiquette that's it's like way too. But anyways, he says, and here and I'm not going to do the accent, but and here at tea time, the proper thing at a luncheon or whatever the hell. And he says, when they bring you the plate of a luncheon appetizer,
Mhm.
and they pull out a plate, and it's got little sandwich finger foods
Mhm.
so that you can accompany with your tea and whatnot. And
Mhm.
he says the proper thing is not to finger through the sandwich that you want. And like there's different varieties of little sandwiches clumped together, and
Mhm.
you see him imitating what some people would do, like
Mhm.
fingering their way through it to pick out
Yeah.
the actual combination sandwich that they want, which
No.
is what to be honest with you, I want to eat what I want to eat anyways. But then again, I'm not, that's why I'm not, anyways. He says, no, you do not do that. You pick the first one on the edge. It doesn't matter if you don't like it or not, son of a gun. And that's the one you pick and you pass it on. He went through the whole thing. I cannot see. I'm not going to eat what I want. I would like to know if Jamie Page would follow that freaking etiquette. Because to me, hell, I would want to, even if I use a spoon or something to part and grab the one I want, I would not pick the undesirable one at the end.
Well, I, yeah, you don't go rifling food that somebody else is going to eat because they don't know where you've been. That's rude.
wiping your
But you
hands.
know what? If I see that there's bologna over here and there's salami over there, I'm reaching across for the salami. I'm with you on that score. But no,
Yeah,
I'm not going to dig through the entire pile to get down to the one that I want. Oh, I want that one right there. It's got to
like
be that one.
like
Yeah,
looking for the
exactly.
Cracker Jack fries.
Yeah, I'm not reaching my arm down into the cereal to get the toy off the bottom. You don't do that.
Jamie Page said, "Yeah, that's true. There are some restaurants you can go to where they bring out a tower of triangled sandwiches, cakes, and you eat what you want."
Yeah. You pay for the tower, and if you leave any, then so be it. True, but I'm still not going to go rummaging through the sandwiches looking for that special one. It's what do you think you're going to find in there? There's no gold nuggets at the bottom. Take a sandwich and pass the plate around, man. Come on.
When
Because chances are it's going to come back around and you'll get the one you want next time.
when Cubans make um the when they take the hog and they cook it, it's called, there's a word for it. In Spanish it's asado. It's like not roasted, but it's roasted in its own juices. I don't even know what the hell
Mm-hmm.
you call it in the anyways. The skin becomes tough
Mm-hmm.
like a pork rind,
Mm-hmm.
and they cut it open and they bust it open with all the stringy awesomeness and the juices and whatnot, and they put it on the table, and they have tongs, and people
Mm-hmm.
go and pick up little, but you always, if you look, people are selecting within that
Yeah.
panacea of little tidbits and
Mm-hmm.
stringy stuff and crunchy stuff, and they're selecting what their eyes deem.
Yeah.
But and I do the same, and I
But they're
like,
not doing it with their fingers. That's the
well,
difference.
yeah, well, yeah,
You know.
well, I do the same. I go for the crunchy and then some of the sauce, and so everybody, so there's something nice about selectiveness when you're enjoying
Mm-hmm.
a meal. Anyways, whatever, that was a side
Okay.
thing.
Jamie says, "Oh no, um, you would select what sandwiches go on the tower, and there would be, say, a tower for two or a tower for three people, etc. So there'd be enough for plenty. Okay, all right, but still." I don't care how well you know these people or how well you think you know these people. It's just rude to be handling everybody else's food if you ain't the cook. You know what I mean?
Hey, Mike. As I'm fingering this
I
this
mean,
this pastel this bread here, that doesn't. Do you want this one?
Linda teases me, and I tease myself about it too. If I'm when I'm barbecuing, for instance, and I'm preparing everything and getting it all set up, I wash my hands probably 30, 40 times over the course of the day doing that. Just simply because, I don't want to pick something up that maybe wasn't clean and then go start handling our food, you know. So I wash my hands, I mean,
You
and
never, after a hard day's work with
and I do
scratch.
the cross contamination thing. I take that very
I
seriously,
do too.
and it cheeses her off. Well, I don't know if it cheeses her off, but there's been a few remarks over the years, very few and far in between. But I'll dirty up 6 dishes to boil water because I've got the raw meat out here on this platter and I'm seasoning it up and everything else, and then I wrap it in saran wrap. I'll put it back on that platter and put it in the fridge, and then the next day I'll take it out, I'll unwrap the saran wrap, I'll leave it on the saran wrap, but that dish goes in the sink.
I
I
wash
don't
my hands
use
between
the
meats,
and yeah, so do I. I use different cutting boards
and it's
for
just
different
me
things.
here, and it's just me here, and I
Yeah.
wash my hands between meats.
Well, it's just Linda and I, but I will get out a one cutting board for bread, one cutting board for vegetables, one cutting board for meat, and I use different knives. That's what I mean. I'd dirty up plates, and we'll have to do dishes before we can eat because I've used them all up making dinner, you know. But that's just
There-
the way I am. I take that stuff very seriously. If I'm going to be, it's just her and I, so I will do it barehanded, and but I wash my hands. But if we go to anybody's house, I've got a special box of gloves and glove liners that I wear, and I'm gloved at all time when I'm doing that kind of thing.
do you know how I bred my cordon bleu chicken?
Mm, mm. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I had to do it. I had to do it.
Yeah.
Look, 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 look.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
sorry. I
Yeah.
had to
Well,
do it.
whatever works for you, throw the flour underneath there and just, yeah, there you go.
That's the proper way.
How many times you want yours squeezed?
Shoot. Oh man.
I have a meme. I have a meme of like a pug up next to a barbecue, and there's a whole bunch of hot dogs on the barbecue. And the pug is looking at the camera with the look on his face like, oh man, if this wasn't hot, I'd be in the middle of those. But the caption is, they're almost done. How many times you want yours licked? Then down below it says, just kidding. They've all been licked.
Oh, it gets worse as it goes. It gets
I'll
so
send it to
bad.
you. I'll post it over on the Facebook page. It's actually cute.
I had a problem the other evening
Mm-hmm.
where I was preparing soup
Mm-hmm.
and a little, as it was hovering, a little gnat type fly thing
Mm-hmm.
went, it got the steam and went
Uh-huh.
straight and plunged into that soup of, and I'm standing hovering over that thing looking at, and I am like this.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want creatures,
Yeah.
not even patrolling the outer perimeter of my. I do not want. And now, mind you, if we were in a Guadalajara prison cell and had to
Mm-hmm.
eat whatever they put there, I'd
Yeah.
have to fricking double down and do it. But in any other situation,
Yeah.
so I had to contemplate: was it worth tossing? And I did, and I said,
Yeah. Just scoop it out.
well, yeah, you just scoop it out. And that's what I did. But
Mm-hmm.
I did contemplate. I said, oh crap, it's tainted now slightly.
But
But I scooped it out.
but if you're a Scottish like me, you're standing there smacking it on its butt, going, "Spit it out, you bastard! Spit it out!"
I mean, there's so many places to fricking fly around.
That's it. That's it.
What's up with these frickin' bugs, man? It is Florida. It is
It's
Florida.
life. It's life. It's life in the world. You know. So it just happens. All right, now Jamie throws in some famous English sandwiches are eggs and cress. I eat hell out of egg sandwiches. Never had cress in my life, to my knowledge. Cucumber. I don't know what's in a plowman's. What is in a plowman's sandwich? I've never understood the attraction for cucumber sandwiches. To me, one of the wettest vegetables on the face of the earth between two pieces of dry bread just doesn't make sense to me, but that's me. I am okay, fine. I've never had cress though that I know of, and I assume you mean watercress.
Hey,
But
Jamie Page.
but what is a plowman sandwich?
Hey, Jamie Page. Every now and then, out of love and like, but I do write these little things on Facebook that for some reason everybody else sees, you never see, and it's to do with you directly, actually. So one time I wrote, but out of affection, it's affection. Um, one time, I sat down and wrote because that earlier that day, a British family.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably, apart from Jamie Page, the second British family to visit in the
Mm-hmm.
past 30 years. That's not true, but let's
That you
say,
witnessed anyway.
yeah, that's not true at all. But like, just say for fun,
Mm-hmm.
um, but a big SUV drove up to my block,
Mm-hmm.
and it just so happened that the moment that he drove up, my Cuban lady neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
they signaled to her, and she was talking. While meanwhile, me and my Cuban neighbor were talking on our own something else.
Mm-hmm.
But we noticed the SUV. Then that other lady signaled to me to come as the only English speaker, not the only one, but the one that she knew. And I walked over, and the little on the window on my side pulled down, and then a guy proceeded to speak quintessentially British English to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, "Oh, you folks are from the UK? Oh yeah, we're from the UK." And I said, "Well, you know what? We love the UK, so you're quite welcome. What directions do you need?" And they said, "Well, we're looking for a good Cuban restaurant." And we were told this one, and I said, "Well, look, to be honest with you, you're gonna have to do some serious driving to get to it. And although it's true that that's a pretty good restaurant, if you don't want to drive that far, up to you. I could give you very direct nearby, just under the expressway. On the other side, there's this great, and it's a great freaking Cuban. Mark Saunders and I went to that one,
Mhm.
um, when he was down here, on another occasion. And so I drew a map for them. I went inside, got a pen, like I made it as clear for them, and and we talked back and forth and whatnot, this and that. And then I sat and wrote and said, "Oh, I I wrote them directions, but then they were British, but then they reminded me of JP.
Mhm.
So I wrote them direction to Old Man Tubbard's home out in the Everglades. The the rumors of his cannibalism are over exaggerated, and people had a great time with that story. Like
Uh-huh.
like they laughed and stuff. Jamie Page never got the brunt of it.
Man, yeah. You're gonna have to tag him in it
Yeah, and
so
I
that
don't
you're
do that
sure
because
it's him.
I don't like doing that just in case because some people might not like being
Yeah,
tagged.
yeah. Well, it's Jamie. I don't care if he likes it or not. I'll tag him.
Because then you're wedded to now. Then you're wedded to the thing, and you don't want to do
Well,
that.
yeah, but you have a choice of letting it go to your timeline or hiding
Oh,
it from your timeline. Now your
oh.
tag is still there, but you don't it doesn't have to go onto your timeline. You're given a choice. Okay. Plowman sandwich is brown bread, mature cheddar cheese, 3 slices of thick ham, handful of lettuce, tomato, and Branston pickle. I don't know what Branston pickle is, but it sounds very much like a regular ham and cheese sandwich you hear. But you call it a Plowman. Okay. Lettuce, tomato, and a Branston pickle. I don't know what a Branston pickle is. So, okay. Jamie says, I have the option to let it go to my wall, Eloy. Tag away. Okay.
I
You
was
heard it
quite
here
happy.
first.
Okay, well, I'll keep this in mind. I was quite pretty happy with that post that one time. It was sometime last year, or
Yeah.
whatnot. But I loved that I was able to bridge the connection and create some sort of weird cannibalistic event in the Everglades to it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a twisted individual, man. Life in the swamp will do that to you.
Mr. Livingston, Dr. Livingston.
I presume, yeah.
Just for fun.
Okay, here we go. Branston pickle is sweet and spicy with a chutney-like consistency, containing chunks of vegetables and a thick brown sticky sauce. Oh, okay. No, I've never had that. Okay, I'm gonna have to look for it. Branston pickle. I wonder if Linda's taking notes and looking up recipes. Okay, okay. Mm. See, I get food ideas here. So I love it.
If I ever if I have the privilege of traveling to Spain and visiting with my family
Mhm.
with the adequate freedom to explore, they have a ferry in
Mhm.
Santander
Mhm.
that goes out weekly,
Mhm.
crosses um, the Bay of Biscay into English waters, and docks somewhere there in the south of England. I
Mhm.
forget what the thing, but it goes like you can buy tickets and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, I'll take that, but unbeknownst to Jamie Page, I'll take that and I'll drive up to his door, walk. I don't know how, and I'll just knock, clink, 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 while he opens the door and bring him that surprise. No,
Yeah,
I would call beforehand, obviously.
I wouldn't.
I'm here for dinner.
I'm knocking when the minute he opens the door. Say, what was that shit you said last February?
So what's for lunch?
Let's see
I'm
here.
famished.
Man, I got people are doing my googling for me. Thank you. Steve says you can buy Branson pickle on Amazon. Okay, I'll look it up. Although some of that stuff on Amazon, you got to be careful about that because you might find it, But you'll also find out that you could get it at a grocery store in town for like 3 times less the money. I couldn't believe what some of these Amazon sellers are asking for stuff like that. You know, one of my favorite chocolate bars from Canada is called Coffee Crisp, and I can order them off Amazon, but they want like, you know, $20 for 5 candy bars. It's like, no, not out of this cowpoke, you ain't. I'll just wait till our grocery store gets more in.
The other night, it popped into my head that because I have cassette tapes
Mm-hmm.
that I want to transfer over. For the
Yeah.
life of me,
Mm-hmm.
my mom's old cassette player, I can't freaking find it. Where the heck is it?
Yeah.
And so I said, man, I want, I've seen them before, but I need a tape deck transferred to MP3.
Yeah.
And then I thought, damn, what's that? It's been so long since I bought something from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It literally took me a few minutes to remember Amazon. I was sitting there, I was like, what's the name of that site where you can
Mm-hmm.
buy a bunch of stuff? I was thinking, what is it? What is it? What is it? And the first one that popped into my head was eBay for some reason. Saying, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's not eBay. It's not And then I had to walk inside the hallways of my brain because it's such a
Yeah.
that happens sometimes, you know.
It doesn't get any better as you get older. Just letting you know right now, it does not get any better. I have whole weeks like that. I'm telling you, Eloy, I can, I can, I can see it in front of me. I can pick it up. I can hold it in my hand. I can hand it to you. You can hold it in your hand. I can't tell you what the hell it's called. I have no idea what the hell the name of it is.
They say that there's old memory, long-term memory that's
Mm-hmm.
fixed in you where you'll relive it in your head
Mm-hmm.
at the drop of a dime. And then there's immediate current memory
Mm-hmm.
that is not so, because you need to really fork it into that
Mm-hmm.
meat, that brain meat.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
but over time, and I was. This has been going on since I was like in my 40s. And one time, through a friend of a friend of a friend kind of a thing, I found out that I was with a psychologist, sitting at a table. And so I started talking about that. And, I am pouring my heart out to this dude. And he stops and he says, Mark, yeah. He says, are you worried about it? And I said, well, hell yeah. I'm wondering if this is the first early stages of Alzheimer's or something like that. I'm really concerned. He says, you're fine. What do you mean? He says, if you're upset about it, you're fine. Because if there was anything wrong,
you wouldn't know.
you'd be frustrated at the time, but you'd forget all about it. You wouldn't care. You wouldn't
Right? You
know.
remembered that you forgot,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all that you
He
need.
says,
Well,
if there was anything wrong with you, you would never know it. Okay, so now I just kind of, yeah, it's frustrating, but and it also leads to some interesting conversations around here, because I'll be walking around and suddenly remember something I was trying to remember last week, and then it's like, oh, that was it, and she's like, what are you talking about? It's just what it's like to be around me.
it's normal, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a good response. I mean, at least it makes sense, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, if it was a problem, you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, so you might be frustrated at the time, but you would forget it so quickly you wouldn't know anything was ever wrong. Said, so you're fine. I'm like, okay, if you say so. What was your name again? No, I'm messing around.
Now, I've lost the plot a long time ago, my friend. I can tell you that. I have allowed for so many different, entertaining so many different things
Mm-hmm.
by a lot
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not nowhere near close to Kansas anymore. I can tell you that much.
Mm-hmm.
I can hold it together, like in terms of communicating
Mm-hmm.
in the ways that is north, but that's not where I want to go. That's not where my instinct is pulling my thought, my
Well,
wanting to dish out things. And I'm not talking about our particular. I'm saying like broadly speaking.
well, even that's
Um,
getting more
yeah.
different. Even
What's that?
that's getting more difficult. I mean, because words keep changing. I've mentioned it before. There's a channel that I sometimes follow. I don't subscribe, but when I see he's got a new video that pops up in my suggestions, I'll go check it out. The channel's called Rob Words, and he's a etymologist who studies word derivations in various languages and what have you. And he was talking with a lexicographer on his show about definitions and how they change, and how some of them, there were two phrases. One of them was skunked and the other was bleached. And what a skunked word is a word that has a definite meaning. One of their examples was unique. That word has been skunked in that it no
You
longer means what it used to mean.
can I throw in before you say what it means?
Okay.
Was it Eureka?
Unique.
Oh, you
Unique.
because the other one I heard Eureka.
Well,
Which
I
was that?
didn't mean it, but now that you mention it, deodorant would be nice. But
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But you see what I'm saying? Well,
yeah,
I heard. I heard Eureka because Eureka. I don't want to take it away from where you're going, but I just as an aside, the word reek,
hmm
and for our purposes, in a general sense, common culture,
hmm
normal thing, tends to go in the direction that you said.
hmm
you know, but it's also used when somebody's abundant in something. In a creative way, you could say this guy reeks of wealth,
hmm
or this guy like there's
it
other
just means smells. He just, yeah, he smells of wealth. You can see it.
yeah,
It's an
okay,
aura around him.
but go
But
back
yeah,
to
but unique actually means one of a kind, the only one. It doesn't mean special or different. It means the only one. So we overuse that, and that means and that word has been skunked. Its definition has been changed, and it no longer has the impact that it used to.
you could
So
you but let me amend or try to
mhm,
amend what you just said without
mhm,
removing the
mhm,
point that you just said, but just amending or adding to it.
mhm,
If you allow for it, you tell me, because I think this is important. Because if not, we have a word here that we cannot cross
mhm.
other borders with. But I want to use it because I like that.
Okay.
If the sentence is under the category level of unique to people that live in Panama, then you're not limiting it to a one uniqueness, but to a location. So it can be transposed. Okay,
It can be now, but that's not what the word originally meant. It meant one of a kind, only one.
wait a second.
You wouldn't say that this particular trait was unique to Panama. You wouldn't say that. You would use another word. You If you forged a bronze sword on your own, you could hold it up and say this is unique, and that would be correct because it's the only one.
Wait a second, please.
Okay.
This is dangerous territory.
Not really, but go ahead.
No, it's not. I'm actually exaggerating. I'm using the word poorly, but expressively, so it's allowed, which is kind of what you're saying that
Well,
people.
I'm not even going to say that you're saying it, that you're using it poorly, because it has come to mean also special. It means special or specific to,
Yeah,
because word meanings do evolve.
but there's a wrench that I want to throw into the
Mm-hmm.
the machine.
I've got another one, but go ahead.
No, I want to throw this wrench in.
Sure.
We're not going to be able to resolve it, but I just want
Mhm.
to throw this concept and see. Without knowing much else other than the context of what you're bringing to the table,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that popped into my head with limiting unique to that you said,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that this is true what I'm about to tell you, to
Mm-hmm.
be clear, but I think it sounds reasonable enough that it might be true,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess we could go a hopping and exploring to figure that out, and I don't know if it's worth it or not, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall, back in the late 1800s, or I forget
Mm-hmm.
when the English language was being compiled into a dictionary,
Mm-hmm.
like the most massive work
Yeah.
undertaken by X
Yeah.
amount,
Samuel Johnson and the rest of them. Yeah.
part of their job was to not include just one meaning of a word, but the variations that encompasses that is
Right.
in common use within, for that word. So my
Mm-hmm.
question is, can you without a doubt tell me that unique only meant the specific, let's say, sword forged out of bronze because it's one of a kind in
Mm-hmm.
itself, it's unique, that it didn't mean that it couldn't be applied and was not applied in other scenarios back when?
Yes, it comes from Latin, uni meaning one.
No, I concede to that
So so
100%.
so at
But
the time, that's what that word meant. The extra meanings were added on later. It evolved, and those definitions were added to the dictionary.
but unique during during the periods where Europe was abounding with Latin in its use,
Mm-hmm.
but in the eras of within the 1800s and 1900s, it had already long time been used for. I mean, people do there. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
I do
in
see what you're saying, and those again, those other meanings were added later as the language evolved.
but not
But yes, you can find copies of dictionaries where that word has one definition, meaning one of its kind.
yeah, okay, but but are you? But let's. I want to clear the decks of it. And see if you agree or not. You're not saying that the word unique, and you may be right with it if you are saying that. I don't know that, but that's why I'm
Okay.
pushing you. What you're not saying, I'm posing the question. What you're not saying is that in the 1800s, anybody using the word unique only used it in the
No,
context.
because that time it had other meanings.
Okay, okay,
By
okay,
that time it had other meanings. Yes.
okay, okay, okay,
We're
okay.
going
Because I
back to
was
word derivations and what they actually meant, and then they
okay,
were slowly adopted over time.
okay. Because I thought that
Mhm.
I didn't know. I should have asked you first when that would have occurred. We don't know probably, but
I don't know. I could look it up, but I don't know when the extra definitions were added. But I've got another example for you. When I say the word enormous, what comes to mind?
massive, large, um,
Mhm.
something big, something
Okay.
overwhelming. If I
Okay.
were to go into other definitions, I could expand on it, but
Mhm.
it can be applied. But yes, I would say that.
That's another word that's been skunked because it actually meant, it's also Latin, it actually meant out of the norm. So
Oh,
at the time, a short person, someone's 7'2" would be enormous, but somebody 3'2" would also be enormous because they were out of the norm. That's all
yeah,
it meant.
but
But then gradually, because there are far more tall people than there are
yeah,
little
but
people, and it over time and that's why it was skunked. It doesn't mean what it used to mean. It now is reserved only for something large.
the only problem that I'm having with the way you're laying this out,
Hmm.
and this is good because this is a different, this is a fun.
Hmm.
The only problem I'm having with the way you're laying it out
Uh-huh.
is that, and you're not suggesting it outright, but why do I feel like you're if I were put in front of a judge
Hmm.
and two lawyers and all that, and said, "Where did Mark say X, Y, and Z?" I couldn't put it like,
Hmm.
but for some reason in my mind, what it almost sounds like enormous. The
Hmm.
way you explain that, just like the other word, happened like there were English people walking around
Well,
not using it for any other reason, and then all of a sudden it was starting to. But what you're saying is that going
when
to
it when it first came into the language, that's what it meant.
the
Because you
English language,
to the
or
English language, because you got to remember the English language went through several different periods. So we're talking about a lot of these words were added when we shifted from Old English or Middle English into the modern English that we speak today, and a lot of that came along with the Normans and the Battle of Hastings and all this other good stuff. A lot of these words came in, French as well as Latin, that we weren't using in Old English or Middle English. So as the words came in, they had words for somebody that was big, huge, massive, but they didn't have the word enormous. And that simply meant out of the norm. And a big person is out of the norm. It later on, the definition changed not to just something that's out of the norm, it changed to mean something that is big, is huge, is large. You know,
I
so the study of and that's why study of the English language was always so fascinating to me because it morphed. It went through several different iterations before it settled on what we speak now, and even that is evolving right before our eyes.
it ain't evolved none, okay, y'all.
It sure has. Think of the word. Okay, this is going to get strange. Do not well, we're not monetized anyway, but don't hit us with any kind of a thing.
If they were to demonetize us, we would then be monetized because they would be doing
Yeah,
the
they would
opposite
have
of
to
what
monetize us to demonetize us. The period from 1890 to 1899, what was that known as?
from 1890 to when?
1899.
Elizabethan?
No.
No,
For
yeah.
instance, it was a nickname. For instance, we had the Roaring Twenties. There was a name for that period of the 1890s.
There's a name for the people of that time that were called not the Elizabethans,
Victorians.
the Victorians.
Right. It was the Victorian era. But that particular time in history, up until relatively recently, was known as the gay 90s because it was the period after the Civil War. It was coming up on the turn of the century. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing. People had money. The economy was doing great. And it was just kind of a carefree time. And it was known as the gay 90s. Now, that word changed in the mid to late 70s. And now nobody would ever make that connection with that period of time anymore. I can remember a pizza franchise all over the West Coast that was called the Gay 90s Pizza. And it silently went away about the mid 70s because a word definition changed.
Well, you know that we're all Homo sapiens, so
Right. There was a diet aid, I guess you would call it, that looked like little caramel candies. And you ate two of these with a hot beverage, and it was supposed to curb your appetite and help you lose weight. You know what the name of it was?
hmm
AIDS.
yeah.
That went out of business in the mid 1980s. It was like, man, no, 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 no. Why did they name that after us? Why couldn't they have called it Doritos, or something like that? So, but the language is evolving right in front of us, whether we like it or not. And it's kind of interesting to me to see which direction it goes in. There are still a few things that we need to, because the name of the game is communication. But if you have a different definition of a word than I have, how can I be sure I'm communicating what I'm trying to get across to you? Because if I say a word and you think something else, we're completely on different planets.
No, but wait a second. You and I, as an
Mm-hmm.
example, do that all the time in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we've pointed it out. Many times it goes unquestioned,
Mm-hmm.
so it's unbeknownst to us. But in some instances,
Mm-hmm.
we've been able to suss that out, such as
Mm-hmm.
the use of the word argument.
Yeah.
Even though I know that the use of the word argument, as defined by you in the past,
Mm-hmm.
even though I know that that definition exists,
Mm-hmm.
my choosing it in sentences
Mm-hmm.
is another definition,
Right.
which is to put forth argumentation over a question,
Mm-hmm.
and we've gone into that.
Yeah.
It's actually used all the time,
Uh-huh.
the way I use it,
And
but
that's evidence of that evolution.
but it's actually used all the time the way you use it too. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
in context of the sentence and words surrounding it,
Mm-hmm.
gives a clue as to in which fashion it's being introduced into the. But that's not always 100% clear,
Mm-hmm.
especially if attached to a word someone has positive or negative connotations attached to
Right.
it that sort of spiral other concepts into the mix.
Right.
That's why, uh, contrary to what I believed back when I was a kid, when I talked with my dad, where he asked me to translate some things,
Mm-hmm.
and I did so, and I said, "Well, Dad, you can use any word here, and it's all the same." And he says, "No, no, no, words have meanings." He told me,
Yes.
and we're talking about way back in time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it to heart. I remembered it, but I didn't. In my mind, I was like, "Okay,
Well,
yeah, okay, fine." Well,
and
no, let me just wrap this up.
yeah.
So when I write today, imperfect as there's no way, there's
Yeah.
always going to be problems. But when I write, I actually do think a few, and I leave out. In order to get a question or idea put on paper or on the internet or wherever, or for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, you need to limit all other things that you may know about a given subject,
Mm-hmm.
unless you want to write a freaking column or a freaking
Yeah.
um
10-page dossier. Yeah.
and nobody's going to read. Well, many won't read that anyhow. So the
Mm-hmm.
point is that you have to pack in the most, like a jigsaw puzzle, to
You
try
got
to
to be
get
concise. Absolutely.
right. But here's the trick. I'll finish with this. On the receiving end, the reader, you have no control over how they work.
Exactly.
So they could read something that's perfectly crafted
Mm-hmm.
or well crafted to one degree or
Mm-hmm.
the other, and draw from it a completely different story.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, it's a it's simply open to interpretation from all sides. It really is. You may think that it's a nice, clear, concise, declarative statement, but you can't anticipate what somebody else is going to try to glean from that statement. What did they really mean? You may think it's just as clear as a bell, and the other person not agree with you at all in its clarity. That is not the content of the statement.
Yeah, two things are happening.
Hmm.
The one thing is that all the other context that you could add to it
Hmm.
needs to be shaved off in order to streamline it. So the person coming around will say, he missed this point and that point. You may not have missed it. You did disqualify it from what you wrote. But if you
But
read what
that
a
don't
person,
mean you don't know it. Yeah.
that doesn't mean you don't know. If a person writes something that's relatively thoughtful,
Hmm.
you could choose to assume, without knowing it for sure, but according to what's written, that the person might maybe have somewhat of of a ability to think on other things as well. So in your reply, you should take that into consideration as opposed to saying stupid crap, which happens all the time. And
Yeah.
secondly, is what you're saying that they could completely misjudge everything. That's because they're coming to their own,
Right.
connections and
Their
what.
own interpretation of it. Yeah.
Right.
And that's one of those things you've got to watch out for. And I know there are a lot of times, I don't know if you get exasperated with me or frustrated with me, but that is why I tend to say the same thing over or repeat what you said using different words. That's an attempt to make the meaning clear so that there's no ambiguity of the statement. So if you say something, I may repeat it back to you in the same words.
No, but that affliction of
Mhm,
that occurs, that example that I
mhm.
pointed out of people in
Yeah.
communication, applies to myself too.
Oh,
So
it
in other
applies to
words,
all of us. Yeah.
right. So I'm not suggesting that, oh, it's all those other people over there and me, I'm
No, no,
free,
no,
I'm
no, no.
free of. No. And so whenever we have a situation where something is misconstrued,
Hmm.
it's because I'm also, in many cases, maybe not always, if and we can
Hmm.
hammer that down, but in some cases I missed the freaking gist of what you said, or
uh-huh.
like literally, you understand, like that is
Yeah.
a valid truism. I may be on about a concept, and I've gone back in some of our videos and pointed right out where that occurred
Hmm.
on my behalf,
Yeah.
where you were saying something and I think, yeah, I understand exactly what he's saying, that makes sense, but during that moment, since I was focused on this whole exploration here, I missed your whole thing because my brain, since we have that issue as human beings do,
Hmm.
and in the right scenario,
Hmm.
it can become an explosive situation because,
Oh, it sure
I mean,
can.
right. And so, but as long as we know that these are human things that happen, we're kind of understanding that, well, we're human. And so, but it's people that don't take none of it into account
Hmm.
at all, ever, 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 ever. I'm exaggerating, but those people, it's very difficult to communicate with them.
Yeah. Well, and some of it is legit, the misunderstanding, but some of it is also by contrivance. And you know what I'm talking about. Misunderstanding. For example, I can't remember the name of the explorer. They landed on a Polynesian island, and I don't remember which island it was. This is how great my memory is. What I do remember was there was a shore party that was greeted by the locals and brought ashore. This is back in the 17 or 1800s. And the shore party was brought ashore and they were welcomed and everything. And they're sitting down and the elders are gathered around and everything. And one of the crew asked, he thought he was asking, could you send a boy up the tree and get us a coconut? What he actually said was, would you get a young boy and cut off his head?
No.
Yes. And you were talking about explosive situations. They kind of course, everybody just, froze up immediately. All the elders got up and the shore party was set upon, and there were no survivors. So that was just a mistake, an error. It
Can we
later
call it?
transpired
Can,
another shore party came ashore, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, guys, what's going on.
can we call it a deadly mistake?
And we could, yeah, that's the fauxest of the faux pas you can make. Get your entire shore party killed, you know. But they were overdue, they were overdue, they were overdue, and some other folks came ashore, found out what had happened. It's like, no, 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 no. And that's not what we're about. No. But it was there are like three words that are very spoken that pronounced very similar. And they I want to say it was I want to say it was Tonga, but I may be wrong in that. But he thought he was asking for the boy to send a boy up the tree and get us a coconut. And actually, it was go get a young boy and cut off his head. And just, yeah.
Are you sure he didn't say? Are you sure it wasn't translated into find the biggest bull on this island and let it ride me
Well,
like Texas Tammy?
well, I'm reminded of that episode of MASH where Father Mulcahy thought he was saying, "We're your friends, we're your friends." What he was actually screaming to the guy was, "Your daughter's pregnancy brings much joy to our village." You know? So, what the heck?
It can go so wrong so quick with just that kind of
Yeah,
joke.
somebody thinking that they understand. And that kind of brings us back to I don't know the etiquette if the royal family, drives in front of me while I'm on the sidewalk in England. I don't know what the etiquette is. I'm just probably going to stand there and go, "Oh," and everybody will go, "Oh, tourist." You know.
That's hilarious.
What can you say?
That would have been a terrible um crew to be a participant in. Shoot.
Well, what can you say? Uh, Jim, ever the romantic son of a gun, says tomorrow is Hallmark and florists make a profit day. And we can see who forgot to go out and buy chocolates and roses, can't we? Um, yeah, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, but do you know what it's about, Jim? No, it's not for florists and card sellers.
The
Um,
world numbers, um like I've seen clips of it and
uh-huh.
it seems but there's more single people. I mean, there's more people anyhow, but there's amongst the population, like if you average it out, according to what they say out there, I would have to hammer that down, but I'm just talking now. This is a little bit slight trash
Mhm.
talking, but there's other numbers. Like we do know that people aren't marrying as much, people
Right.
aren't having as many children, and that's been going on since the turn of the century, last century.
Mhm.
But like it's exacerbated. So there's a population replacement question on the table across the world, but in
Mhm.
America, big time as well.
Mhm.
Um, and China, even though they're so big in this and that, there seems to be a funnel effect in terms of replacement people for the future generations and whatnot. So there's all these things going on. Um, uh, so there's a lot of single people,
Yeah.
a truckload of single people.
Mhm.
I'm one of them. There's a truckload. Let me turn off the AC.
I don't think people know how to date anymore, but that's just my opinion. I'm old school, so But what St. Valentine's Day was, February 14th is the feast of St. Valentine. And St. Valentine was a Roman priest who performed secret weddings against the wishes of the authorities in the 3rd century. That's who he was. So that's why it's celebrated, basically, this feast of St. Valentine.
Dude, this is a segue.
Hmm.
For some reason, you just reminded me. Even well, when you said Rome, although it has nothing to do with Rome,
Hmm.
I've got to share this bit with you, and I'm gonna link it to you
Uh-oh.
if others are interested. Well, no, if you want to see it,
Oh, okay.
It's not required to pass the exam, but just in case you're in case you're curious
Mm-hmm.
after I say what the thing, dude. I saw the most bad to the freaking bone,
Mm-hmm.
100% pedal to the metal documentary
Mm-hmm.
over the Iceman, Otzi or
Mm-hmm.
Utsi,
Let's see. Yeah.
dude. It was intricate, but intricate in a freaking interesting Indiana Jones explore, freaking awesome way. Like the actual footage, the people working on, like everything. So Utsi
Mm-hmm.
was found in the Alps,
Yeah.
somewhere thereabouts, between Italy and up into uh,
France,
Switzerland.
wasn't it? Wasn't it
Not France.
France? No.
No,
Okay.
it was north of northern borders of Italy, between
Okay.
Italy and the Austrian slash all that area.
Yeah. Okay.
Dude, they actually had footage of when they found him. I don't know if you know,
Mm-hmm.
but they actually recorded the whole thing.
Oh
Like
wow.
like At the time, they
Yeah.
filmed the crap out of it because what happened was that these guys up in the mountains, as the thing was defrosting, the ice was, they saw this man or this body, and
Hmm.
they went to it and they started like crunching and said, "Oh crap, we have either someone that was murdered up here
Yeah.
or some sort of ski guy
Hmm.
that got lost or something." But when they were breaking the ice, they found a knife, arrowheads,
Hmm.
and clothing made out of straw, woven, but then straw,
Hmm.
and they were like, "What?"
Hmm.
And they found an axe made out of bronze
Hmm.
or copper, and they said, "Holy crap!"
Yep.
Okay, so they have all the footage like throughout the documentary. It's like, dude, mind blowing. Um, so now they've DNA sequenced him,
Mm.
right? So people, and they search out for people that connect him so they can find patterns in
Yeah.
population movement and what the hell. They were very suspicious at the beginning as to what the heck time period, what groups was he from. They discovered the way he died, which was an arrow to the back
Yeah.
shoulder.
He was murdered. I did hear about that. I did hear
Okay.
about that. Well, he was killed. We don't know if it was murder or not.
Well, an arrow was shot into his shoulder,
Hmm.
but I mean, that means that, I mean, he wouldn't have shot himself. So I would assume that somebody was chasing his butt, but we don't know the
Yeah.
details of that. But let's just
Right.
say an arrow was found, and interestingly, the food was found in his belly of what he had
Hmm.
eaten, which was some sort of bison creature, antelope type thing.
Yeah.
So they could tell that he had eaten within the past 24 hours when he died because it stayed there frozen.
Yeah.
His skin, the underlayer of his skin was intact, the outer layer had gone away, his tattoos.
Hmm.
Anyways, they found mushroom, and there's similar mushrooms in other parts that are used
Hmm.
currently or known for their use
Hmm.
as antiseptics. So if
Hmm.
you get a cut,
Yeah.
you put the mushroom on, and people would carry it.
Hmm.
He was carrying that.
Hmm.
He was a short fellow.
Hmm.
His skin was light, but not quite light like
Hmm.
Northern Europeans
Yeah.
on a spectrum.
Hmm.
But it wasn't what. Where was this guy from? And so as they did the DNA and this and that, they first thought he was a hunter gatherer,
Hmm.
which were dark individuals.
Hmm.
Most, if not all, by a lot that they found had blue eyes,
Hmm.
but their skin was. You've seen pictures of Cheddar Man, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not he looked like that, who knows? But they didn't have, these people didn't, hunter gatherers didn't have any of the markers in their DNA
Right.
for lightening of skin. That had not come about yet.
Hmm.
But this guy looked like he was a hunter. But at the same time, anyways, they finally found out he was a man in transition
Hmm.
between the era where people were hunter gatherers and people were also farmers. So he was in
More
that
agrarian.
transition,
Yeah.
and he himself was a farmer.
Well,
Go ahead.
I do know that they say he was well to do
I don't know about that.
for his era. There were I haven't seen this documentary that I know of. Um, I would like you to link me if you wouldn't mind if you
It's
can find
mind
a link
blowing
to it.
stuff.
But I just in passing saw something on one of the documentaries that was on about him. Linda was watching as I was passing through the room. They said the fact that he had metal tools for
He
that
had
age meant that he was fairly well to do, fairly well off, maybe not rich by anybody's standards. But the fact that he had metal tools meant that this was not your average slob.
no, the inclusion of metallurgy, and the fact that you have an item like
Gosh.
that, that's a high.
Mhm.
value item,
Mhm.
even more so by leaps and bounds back then.
Mhm.
So I see what you're saying. Um, so and they did find that axe he had,
Mhm.
and in fact in the
Mhm.
video, in the documentary, they show it. So it's
Yeah.
all there. Like they go through the whole
Mhm.
thing.
Well, in this one, they were saying that the fact that he still had it, that nobody took it from him, given the fact that he was shot, they speculated he may have fallen a distance and was out of reach of the whoever was after him.
I don't know what the
So,
situation. Some people think he was shot,
mhm.
he ran away, died and fell,
Right,
shot or fell, or
right,
that you're saying. So it could be any combination of those
mhm.
things. But he did
Ah,
get preserved in the ice,
right,
and he's sitting in a boat
mhm,
that's set at like 19 degrees Fahrenheit,
mhm.
or
Yeah,
whatever else,
still frozen. Yeah,
still frozen. And in the video they pull him out
mhm,
in the documentary,
mhm,
and they spray him with this liquid, and then people come in to inspect him, and they're actually filming. They film the whole procedure, even up to when the camera goes as they're putting him back into his thing,
mhm.
and they close the door. Like they spared no, they went at it.
Yeah,
And it was all due to they wanted to take as many pictures and scan him, so they can then recreate a 3D printed version of him.
yeah,
And so the whole thing is freaking awesome. Anyways,
yeah.
long for
This doesn't sound like the one that I saw, but I did hear mention of they had 3D printed a
no,
replica of him.
this video is, and I had never seen this video. I had seen
Mhm.
other videos, but this
Yeah.
video is like, I like it because I like it. So anyways, to end it, the inspection of the DNA makes him a farmer. He had
Mhm,
dark hair, dark eyes.
mhm,
The skin was intermediate, let's say.
mhm,
Farmers introduced light skin into Europe,
mhm,
so the the alleles that
mhm,
pair up, that push in that direction, like
mhm,
that was introduced by the farmer people. Um,
mhm.
and they're explaining what happened. This is before the Yamnaya people and before all that. This is like way back. But they said, well, where is this guy from modern? Who are his most modern associated whatnots?
Mhm.
People,
Descendants, yeah.
population wise and stuff, and this and that. And they said they went about the search to see what population does he fit in most.
Mhm,
They went all the way across Western Europe, each country.
mhm.
They went all throughout Central Europe, Eastern Europe. They would have thought that he would have been something like a Northern Italian. That didn't fit. Um, he, they went into Austria, Germany, nothing. They went into Spain. They went to the Greeks, nothing. The problem is that modern people are a mix of him and other groups. So the genetic distance and nearness
Is too far back.
is to we all. So we're all a part of Oxy,
Right.
but us sitting here today are not. So they were thinking, who is the group that? But since we're all a combination of the peoples that created Europe as time went on,
Mhm.
we're not going to look like the people from back then. We're a combination of all those people.
Right.
But then they found the place that most closely connected,
Mhm.
and it was Sardinia.
Really? Wow.
The Sardinians
Mhm,
are, within reason, the best, closest example
mhm.
of um, farmer culture in Europe, even preserved to this day.
Okay.
But in reality, they have other mixtures coming
Mhm,
from the Yamna and other populations. But the point being that when they scoured the world to see what was
mhm.
what, they were the ones that. So basically, they're a representation in the greatest part of what he was. So when you look at Sardinians, and
Mhm,
by look, I mostly mean the genetics,
mhm.
but even the outer whatnot
Features, yeah.
leans in that direction. But if you look at a Sardinian, you wouldn't consider them any different than any other Southern European.
Right. Right.
Well, you
And why
would
would you?
specifically, but in the aggregate, you just say, "Oh, these are like Southern European,"
Hmm.
as far as this and that. Um, it's mind blowing the whole thing. Anyways, at the end they put him back in. They make a recreation of him,
Hmm.
and the people involved talk about it. And it's just one thing after the show the tools,
Hmm.
his tattoo marks. He had arthritis.
Hmm.
Anywhere he had tattoos, they say
Hmm.
were markings specifically where his pains were in his body.
Oh
Just
wow.
just a bunch of, so who knows if it was a spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's mind blowing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, it sounds like it. I'd like to see it. So if you link me to it, I'd appreciate it.
You've seen his body, right? He's like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
Yeah,
seen a couple of documentaries about him, but admittedly, they were pretty early. So, you know, it was still the wonder of actually finding him
yeah.
was the main thing about the documentaries I'd seen.
He was in transition between populations.
Hmm.
So he was a farmer.
Hmm.
There were still hunter gatherers around.
Hmm.
The Yamnaya had not arrived,
Hmm.
which is what informs most of Western Europe
Yeah.
today. Part of what informs most of Western Europe today. And so they call him like, he's basically our Tutankhamun. Well, I'm saying I'm saying it's the world's, but I'm saying within the confines of what Europe is,
Hmm.
he's the equivalent of a Tutankhamun, even though he may not have been necessarily. But in terms of like, wow, or a Ramesses where they're preserved and whatnot,
Hmm.
it's a mummy.
Yeah. 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 And the earliest intact remains they have found so far to this day. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I say Utsi in the documentary. The because Jim was saying Utsi or Otzi. Um, I was saying it Otzi, but in the documentary, the guys working on it or people working on it, I don't know if it's due to their European style of saying things. They were saying Utsi, so I said, "Oh, Otzi might not be the correct thing," so I
Well,
just changed it to Utsi.
you got to remember it may be spelled O, but is there an umlaut over the O? Because
I
in the
think it has
Germanic
a little.
languages, the two dots above the O, it's not quite pronounced it's kind of a So, but
I think
we
that's
would
what.
say Utsi, and they
Yeah,
would probably say something like along those lines, Utsi.
I was saying Otzi,
Hmm.
but then I heard him say Utsi, and so I'm so used to saying Otzi, Otzi, Utsi.
Yeah,
I don't
not
know.
not to be confused with that company that makes pretzels back east there somewhere
What's that one?
in the Midwest.
Which is?
Utsi,
Oh, is it?
UZI, yeah, or UTZI, something like that.
Talking about pretzels, just to and we're landing the plane soon
Yep.
here.
Oh, we're
Just
landing the plane and we get pretzels. Cool.
well, yeah, just to attach pretzels to it.
Hmm.
This is gonna be a little bit out of the way, but I have to since you said pretzels. First question to you is: are you a pretzel guy?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
You're a pretzel guy, okay.
Hmm.
Now let me qualify that. Let me qualify that. This is not a big deal, but it is a big deal.
I like both soft and crunchy if that's where you're going.
Oh, you son of a gun! I was gonna ask you if you prefer soft or crunchy,
Depends on my mood.
but there's something special about soft.
Yeah, especially nice and hot.
There's something special about it with the little extra sauces that they put on the side.
Yeah, don't give me
Because
no mustard. I don't want no mustard on my pretzel. Just
extra mustard, Mark.
give me that nice warm pretzel. And I'll eat it just like it is.
Uber.
With the coarse salt, the kosher salt on top. Yeah, there we go. Yep.
So I like the softer pretzels. The harder pretzels, if they're the ones that are formed the way you know that they're formed, like the typical ones,
Hmm.
there's
I like them all.
something. Yeah, there's something dry, extra dry about them. But if you're talking about the Schneiders,
Hmm.
that come in chunks,
Mhm.
I could scarf those down for frickin'
So you
hours.
so you prefer the chunky or the sticks to the little knots?
The little knots, there's something not fun about them for me. Never
Mm.
have been.
It's all the same to me. Just, pretzels, sure. Thank you.
And and the soft, large pretzels,
Hmm. Yeah.
those are the top of the heap, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those.
Those are
I
the
do like
crown. Those are the crown jewels of the bread,
them.
especially with little side dippy dips. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, Billy Burt says I do like them dipped in cheese sometimes, though. I'll agree
You
with
see,
that.
you see what we're talking about here?
I'll agree with that. I
The
just don't think
cheese.
mustard goes with it. But I have a love hate relationship with mustard anyway. Some things I like it with, some things I don't.
That's fair.
Hmm.
But now let me ask you this. This is my personal thing,
Hmm.
history with pretzels.
Hmm.
All I ever knew in my life was the hard,
Crunchy pretzels, yeah.
crunchy, dry, chalk like. Not necessarily chalk like, but it's like, go ahead, go ahead.
Now, just did you ever have the Chex Mix around Christmas?
Yep.
Did you buy the stuff in the package or did you get the homemade stuff?
I don't remember my parents bought, but we had it around on occasion,
Hmm.
and I would pick everything out except the pretzels. The sticks, I would allow the sticks
Hmm.
as 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 an unfavorable but consumable extra.
Hmm.
But if they were the little freaking twisty twist ones,
Hmm.
I would avoid that. Like if it was like a roach sitting in a
Oh,
salad.
wow. See, for years they didn't sell it packaged. It was the recipe was on the wheat check cereal box, and what it was a way to get you to buy all four varieties of checks. They had four different wheat, corn, oat, and something else. I don't
I,
remember what the other one was.
do you remember the little boxy box, lighter colored ones that had like little texture on it, and it
Yeah,
was just like, I like that one a lot.
and what they did was you melted butter and added Worcestershire sauce and a few other things, and you basically coated all this, your cereal and your peanuts and everything else. You just kind of mixed it up in this mixture. And when it was hot and fresh right out of the pan, that's when it was the best to
I didn't
me
know
anyway.
that. I
Yeah.
had no I had
And it must have been, I would say, probably mid 70s when it started coming out packaged, maybe later than that. But for many, many years, and people made up their own little varieties. My grandfather, I don't know, still to this day, I don't know where he got them, but you'd have what looked like a miniature slice of bread,
Oh,
like
I
a
loved it. I
like
loved it.
like the little rye breads or something like that.
Yeah, I
They
loved
were
it.
in there, and he would put toasted soybeans in it, and just a whole bunch of things.
See, now that's something that I had no idea went on in the United States of
Hmm.
America across the 70s and who knows how far
Yep,
before.
Billy Burt said it again. Homemade Chex Mix is always better than store bought. I will agree with you there as well. And for many years, that's all there was. Yeah. Greg would say they'd put Cheerios in it. Yeah. It just whatever, you know.
See, that is something that I did not experience growing up. To me, it's what I said, the packages. But then again,
Yeah.
I came around later. Who knows? Did that fall out of favor? Because I never saw anybody ever do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when the prepackaged Chex Mix came out, they stopped putting the recipe on the box, or maybe it's still there around Christmas time. I don't know. It was always seen to me as a around Thanksgiving and Christmas that I would start seeing it. Other people would have their own varieties of it as well, because
That's
some people don't like the wheat checks; they prefer the corn and the oat checks.
Oh, I love everything
You know.
except the, and I'll eat the little
Hmm.
twisty twist one. I'll
Hmm.
eat it.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna spit it out if I'm in polite
Yeah,
company, but it's not my preferred, dude,
yeah.
by any stretch. Now,
I'm a pretzel fan. Yeah.
okay, well, okay, so now I'll just say, and you tell me. Well, obviously you have quite the. I just learned something completely. I had no idea. Like I had no freaking idea about this recipe. Check that one off.
Mhm.
Um, the first experience I had with soft, hot, big ballooned up, awesome
Pretzels.
pretzels
Mhm.
was at the mall in the 80s when they opened up a pretzel place, and we just went to town on that. Now, with that said, prior to that was what we were just talking about. We did not have the soft pretzel thing that I ever experienced up until then. When was your first encounter with the fluffy, awesome inside?
I want to say it was down on Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. But it may have been Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco, but it was in San Francisco during the early 70s, like 72, 73, somewhere in there. Because I thought, geez, look at the size of that pretzel. You know, they were hanging on the racks in the little cart thing. It was inside of a restaurant, but it was one of those things by the door to try to get you to come in and maybe sit down for lunch. But if you just want a pretzel, yeah, we'll sell you a pretzel.
So that was your first time.
Uh-huh. And it
And what did
was, I
you
want to say about 72, something like that. Well, yeah, I had to have one. I'd never seen a pretzel that big.
did you like dig it?
Oh yeah. Loved
Freaking
it.
awesome. Okay,
Oh yeah.
let's go down. Just I hate to do this, but if I'll forget, and it's not going to be as special as it is right
Uh-huh.
now because I've got the feeling going of the food situation plus
Mhm.
the
I
ancient
got the
times. Okay,
music in me.
when was the first time you had a funnel cake slash what we call elephant ear at
Uh,
a fair or whatnot?
again, it was in California. I want to say it was the San Jose flea market. And we're looking at somewhere around 75, 76, something like that.
Confection sugar, chocolate, caramel, or some sort of strawberry
Yeah,
raspberry crap on it?
strawberry.
Oh,
It's just
really? You went
strawberry,
with
yeah.
that?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Strawberry and then whipped cream on top of that. And I
Wh-
was a
wh-
freaking mess.
Can you guess? I don't know why you would know, but just for the hell of it, which one I usually would have gone for
Don't know.
up until the confection sugar one. For some
Just the
reason,
powdered sugar, yeah.
I liked it like that. It was sweet enough and everything. Okay. Anybody have any words of
Yes, didn't we get some in Pigeon Forge? Yes, we did. We got some funnel cakes in Pigeon Forge.
okay, a slight deviation from Circus Olay food. When was the first time, or if you ever had,
Mhm.
a roasted chestnut?
Never had one. I've never
Wow.
had one.
Okay. I had one in
And
Chicago.
and I was reading about this, so it's been about 2 years back. Mainly because the American chestnut died out. And for many, many years, I can remember as a kid, around Christmas time, you could go get them at the supermarket. They had big bins full of it, like apple boxes or what have you, full in the produce department. But we never got any, and I've never had one, so I wouldn't know what a roasted chestnut tastes like.
I had one in Chicago.
Hmm.
There was a little cart and a guy selling them, and we were walking, and my uncle and aunt, I was always with them, even to Chicago. Um, I have a picture I want to get and post of me back then. I had long hair,
Hmm.
and she said my aunt always, look, just like in the movies, this is a very traditional. Let's get some I said, just like in the movies, yeah, just like in the movies we've seen.
Hmm.
Let's go, okay. And we got the chestnut. The guy, normal. It's normal to him, but to us, it was like a special.
Yeah.
To us, it was like some. To me, it was like some magical moment of this and that,
Hmm.
and it was good, but you know, okay. But still, the memory is actually
Yeah.
10 times better than the.
Then the thing actually was.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
but it was good. It was fine.
Well,
Um,
you remember the first time you ever ate a taco?
hmm.
First time I ate a taco, I had no clue how you were supposed to eat this thing because it looked like no matter which direction you pointed at yourself, you were going to spill half of it.
If I think back well enough,
Mm-hmm.
later, and I'm talking about a long time ago later, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still there on the corner, we have a Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been there since the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if I think back, my mom every now and then would be adventurous. That's not even, she deserves much more explanation, but
Mm-hmm.
she would do something different, and it was different for me because I was growing up, it was new. And
Yeah.
one day she brought these little shells in a bag. She
Mm-hmm.
said, "Son, we're gonna do tacos." I had no idea. No, my dad did. We w- we were accustomed to traditional dishes and stuff. To us, the taco, and I know tacos have been around even longer,
Mm-hmm.
but to us, it was something brand new, and I loved the heck out of it because she bought the little cheese, the little
Yeah.
thing. She did the whole thing, and then later,
Mm-hmm.
so that was probably sometime in the late '70s, early '80s
Mm-hmm.
is when I experienced and it was done at home.
Well, as far as I can remember back, Mexican food was not the big explosion or the common thing that it is today. It
It wasn't.
was, no, it wasn't. I remember when my father worked in grocery for most of his life. They would get in something new and he wanted to try it. He'd buy some and bring it home. And the first time he brought home Doritos, I'm 5 years old and I'm arguing with him that no, these are Fritos. They're just triangular Fritos. This is just a corn chip. No, it's a tortilla chip. What's a tortilla? And he couldn't explain it to me because it was new to him as well.
That was '70s.
That was what? No, that was, we're looking at about 1966, 67.
Okay.
So something around in that. So I was 5 or 6 years old. And I still had not had a taco. I didn't, my first taco, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. But it wasn't as common as it is now. Now, Billy down there in Texas said, I only know I've been eating tacos all my life. You can understand that. You're a heck of a lot further south. I was in the Bay Area in California. So that was new and different to me.
But
And I fell in love with it almost immediately.
I have to say that my exposure on a broad level,
Mm-hmm.
just broadly speaking, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it comes to the Mexican taco
Mm-hmm.
compared to what we get now since the '80s, maybe late
Mm-hmm.
'70s,
Mm-hmm.
there's more Central American influence. And I know there's other variations, but what we
Mm-hmm.
usually, the taco is not a taco per se, it's a soft floured something or other, which I had when I was in California. So there's other variations to a theme where
Mm-hmm.
that is produced from what we all know as a taco. There's a sort of um like blanketing of a geographic area with different variations. And let me tell you something, dude. Central American food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one would not know either way just out of the blue, but
Mm-hmm.
dude, talk about if anything goes well with food,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if anything goes well with beer,
Mm-hmm.
it's this food. It's such a perfect coming together because they have little tidbits of different meats and this and that, and then the
Mm-hmm.
tortillas, and then the different salsas. They're different. It's kind of like within the realm of Mexican food,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a variety, and it's freaking awesome, dude. It's like it's
Yeah,
insane.
well, Mexico in many ways, food wise, is kind of like the U.S. in that there's different regions and different customs and different foods.
Yeah,
And I'm going to take a bold stand here, maybe not quite so bold as I think it is, but I'm going to say it up right straight up. Taco Bell ruined Mexican food for most of America
yeah, because now
because
they think
there
it's
isn't a single thing at Taco Bell that's actually Mexican. That's not Mexican food.
yeah,
You
but
know,
it's Mexican in the American way.
Yeah, there it is. It's American food with a Mexican style to it, but they fail miserably.
I
Um,
mean, it's
you
true
know,
that that's
well, you won't find hard crunchy taco shells. You find it's a corn
so,
tortilla, but it's soft.
yeah,
And there's two of them. There's not just one tortilla there.
yeah.
And the whole thing is just, I mean, it can run anywhere from potatoes and green chilies with some cheese to beef to seafood to fish to you name it. And each flavor is different on its own. And I'm a major, major, major fan. Um, uh, Billy has a question for you. He says, "What about Cuban picadillo? You remember the first time you had it? I first kind of explained to this honky what that is."
It's basically so Cuban picadillo
Hmm.
is ground beef.
Hmm.
So it's no more than it's basically beef.
Hmm.
Um, but it has a certain variation. Like they'll use tomato paste in it. I- if you could stop at its ground beef, but it's got the Cuban condiments added to it. Um, it's not spicy, so there's no spice in Cuban food in terms of picante. That doesn't exist in the Cuban tradition. Or in the Caribbean, you might find it in places like
Some
Jamaica and
places,
stuff.
yeah.
But not Cuba or Puerto Rico, like stuff like that's not. It's a ground beef. It goes with white rice, plantains, and some other whatnot dish. Some people, the only thing I'll add extra to that is that I had obviously two grandmothers. One grandmother would make it without raisins, and the other grandmother would make it. And I would tell my grandmother on my mother's side, "Oh, don't add raisins to it. It's okay." And she says, "No, raisins are good. It's good for digestion." This and that. No, don't add. And she'd always inevitably add raisins to it. And I was like, "No," but I'd eat it anyways because the raisins had this little sweet variation to the thing.
Yeah.
But it's ground beef essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Billy says, made Cuban picadillo for the first time a few months ago and loves it. See, now you got to, it's another recipe I got to look up, you know?
Yeah, they also add olives, green olives. I don't know what the actual recipe is exactly.
I would imagine it would be similar to Italian spaghetti and that no two families make it exactly the same.
There's a theme that
Mm.
people stick with to
Mhm.
keep it in the picadillo world,
Uh-huh.
but it's not anything anywhere's
Mhm.
it's basically the ingredient is the ground beef and then the
Mhm.
condiments whatever that might be. I know that there's tomato paste and
Mhm.
the olives, and I know that there's olive oil somehow in it, maybe chopped up onions somehow. So it's really the variation, is the rice with it, white rice,
Mhm.
and then you have the plantain. In combination, it becomes a
Mhm.
Cuban dish.
You see, I've never had a plantain in my life. Never had a plantain in my life. So I don't know what I'm missing. Maybe I need to get some.
Nicaragua.
Uh,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Linda's talking about when she was still in the National Guard, she went to DC for a conference. One night, the representatives from Michigan, Iowa, Maine, Oklahoma, and I went to a Mexican place for dinner. Most had never had Mexican food and they loved it. Oklahoma and I just looked at each other. It was basically a glorified Taco Bell. I do remember um I do remember you going to that conference, and you, that was her favorite story about that conference, about these guys, all these guys in around Washington D.C. and a bunch of Midwesterners going to this franchise Mexican joint, and it was an overglorified Taco Bell. And her in Oklahoma, the guy from Oklahoma, were the only two that saw that. It's like, this isn't Mexican food. What is this?
I've said it before. I had not known all my life
Hmm.
anything other than Taco Bell
Hmm.
as a qualifier for Mexican food.
Hmm.
When I went to California, I had no idea
Oh man,
what I was in for.
food heaven.
I cannot sit here forever since
Hmm.
and not just say great things about the amount of just right combinations of little goodies
Hmm.
with the little this and that is like a
Hmm.
little fiesta of orgasmic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Give me carne asada any day. Give me flauta. Give me chile rellenos. Give me all that stuff. I I want it. I want it all.
I had never had tequila other than maybe a shot or two, but I had never experienced it with the Mexican food,
Hmm.
and it just shot that
Oh yeah.
rating up through the roof. The combination of the experience set in that incredibly beautiful, in my opinion, I don't care. Throw politics. I get. I understand all that stuff. Um, push the the turns to the side of the sidewalk and keep walking. Um, I just painted a terrible picture. Um, all that aside, to eat that food in that place with those drinks and that temperature and that landscape, California is the closest in my mind, and I'll say it until I find something different. And I'm not gonna be doing that. Sitting here in Sweetwater. Um, California was jaw dropping. Period. I
Yeah.
am sorry.
Yeah.
There is. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Chili rellenos are my weakness, says Billy. Linda makes chili rellenos with poblano peppers.
I love how. I love how all of a sudden Billy starts to wax poetic with these delicious. Notice how everybody. It becomes because there's something really. Yeah, dude. I had
Hmm.
these fish tacos. I had never had fish tacos in my life. When I was freaking out there, I couldn't believe what I was eating. Dude, it was so satisfying.
Hmm. I
And,
know.
and it was just a little thing on the side of the road, dude.
Hmm. Yeah. The best Mexican food you will ever get is in a little hole in the wall place in a neighborhood you wouldn't park your car in. So you take a taxi, and when you see Tia in the back flattening the tortillas like this, you're in the right spot.
That's
You are
crazy.
in. You are going to get the best Mexican food you have ever had in your life, and tons of it. They say Americans have serve big portions, brother. I challenge you to eat all the black beans and the rice and everything else that comes with it. Oh my god.
It's really good stuff. The Nicaraguans,
we we got to land the plane or I'm going to get hungry again. We just had dinner.
I'll just be quick because I don't want to miss out. The Nicaraguan food
Mm,
um, is super satisfying, dude.
mm,
Now, I'm really imagining all that back over there, and it's hard to compete with out in California. But here locally, the Nicaraguan food is satisfying. So, in fact, I think that is part of my weight gain across a half decade.
you found a good restaurant.
Well, they're everywhere,
I hear you. I hear you.
and so I've changed that. So I've actually dropped like 15 pounds or more due to not eating deliciously succulent
Hmm.
meals and just sticking to a very but you know what, there has to be
Hmm.
a trade-off and sometimes
Yeah, I mean, you can't eat it all at once, no matter how much you want to, and you
they
can't sample everything, no matter how much you want to.
they take a piece of just this is the last one, but just so I can emphasize the of
Mhm.
this, Mr. Lindsay, they take a piece of I don't even know what kind, it's a white cheese, they
Mhm.
slice off out of the frickin' brick,
Mhm.
the Nicaraguans do, and they take a chunk of cheese, they put it in a deep fryer.
Mhm.
The outside crunches up, the inside becomes melty. They put that on the plate with the rice and the this and the carne and the this and that.
Mhm.
And dude, yeah, it's extreme. But dude, to bite into one of those
Mhm.
is like, it's
Yeah, I
that
know.
level. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, now I'm hungry. Oh man. Okay, wait a minute. Um, Little mom and pop place in a small western Texas town used to have chili rellenos on their lunch buffet. Best I ever had. Yeah, I'm just give me Mexican food and
See,
keep it
this is
coming.
the see. This is forgive you me, everyone out there. This is, I hate to be shallow.
Mhm.
This is the standard of living that we wish to preserve. We wish to
Mm.
preserve. I hate to say it, not really. I love to say it. Give
Well,
me, as well as that, my 24-hour Walmart. Why can't I have it? Why can't I have my 24-hour Walmart?
because Walmart don't want us to open 24 hours, so there.
I just want to put that out there as a little, as my
Well,
putting the flag on the ground.
to be honest, that they're saving money. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They're saving money. That's fewer employees they have to put because they have to have somebody up on the register. If not, folks would just walk out the door with stuff. So they have to have somebody up there. But by locking those doors, the folks can concentrate on stocking the shelves. And, that's it.
Yeah, no, I
I
understand.
I wish it would come back too. But
Well, yeah, there's something to that.
mhm,
And anyways, that's a whole different story. In any event,
yeah.
we go live every Tuesday.
Mhm,
Segue.
mhm.
9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific Coast time here on the Trampled Underfoot podcast show on YouTube. We also have a Facebook page, Trampled Underfoot podcast on Facebook. And I'll try in this instance, if those of you out there that have were curious, and I'll try to grab a link and post it over that Utsi thing documentary. We also have a web page, trampledunderfootpodcast.com. Check that out. And we're sponsored by.
Harneal Media, your web solution. He doesn't like it when I say that, and that's why I say it. Look, if you are thinking about increasing or creating a good web presence, you need to intensify your web presence. You want to let folks know that you're out there and you're legit. You need a website. You don't think you need a website, but trust me, you need a website and you need to go over to Harnea Media and you need to have a chat with Steve. 100% personalized service, very, very competitively priced. He'll do as much or as little as you want him to do, but he can help you get your website up and running. He can help you put together your web store so you can put your goods and services out there in front of the masses. He can hook you up with a print on demand company that'll help you develop merch. You want a line of merch? You want t shirts? Covered. See, I'm living proof. You want t-shirts with your logo? He's got you covered. You want a baseball cap with your logo or a coffee mug with your logo? Yes, he can help you take care of all of that stuff. Go over and talk to my friend Steve at Harneal Media. That's HARNEAL media.com. Sponsor of trampledunderfootpodcast.com.
All right. We hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Do the things that bring you joy and happiness. Be good and be safe. And we'll catch you here next week. Same bat channel. So, peace.
Peace.